This is the RX 470 4GB, and you can buy it brand new in 2025. I bought mine off a Newegg. But is it worth getting? Can it play modern games? Let's find out. Let's start off by testing it, one of the most popular games of all time, Fortnite. At 1080p performance mode, it did pretty good, 187 frames per second, but the 1% lows of 32 frames per second were really rough. So I locked the frame rate to 60 frames per second, and it did much better with 1% lows jumping up to 40. I would definitely say this is playable at 1080p performance mode settings, but I wouldn't expect to be playing in any tournaments. Up next, I dove into some Helldivers 2 and had a lot of fun. This is the minimum recommended GPU for Helldivers 2, and it did really well at 1080p low settings, 42 frames per second average with 27 frames per second, 1% lows. I would say this is playable. I played at level 5 difficulty, so handled it pretty well. If you're just looking to casually play, I think this will do it. With the RX 470 doing well so far, I decided to give it a real challenge with Marvel Rivals, where the minimum recommended GPU is the RX 580. At 1080p low settings, it did pretty well with a 62 frames per second average, but just like Fortnite, the 1% lows were pretty rough at 23 frames per second. It didn't really bother me too much when I was playing, but I wouldn't expect to be super competitive with this. It would just be for casual gaming. Now it's time to give it a real tough challenge with Starfield, where the minimum recommended GPU is the RX 5700. At 1080p low settings, it did all right. We got about 45 frames per second on average when we were indoors, but as you can see, when we go outside, we get about 31, 32 frames per second. So I would say this is playable. 1% lows at 27 frames per second weren't too bad. You can still see where everybody is and the things that are going on. If you're just looking to play the game at low settings and you don't care much about graphics, this could actually do it. I was surprised. Let me know down in the comments if you were surprised at how well the RX 470 handled games and if you would game on it in 2025. If you enjoyed this video, check out some of my other GPU tests.